Most people don't realize it, but a silent, almost invisible behavior dominates modern relationships: the compulsion to constantly explain oneself. This habit seems harmless, even polite, a form of empathy or consideration. However, behind this need lies a deeper, more disturbing reality: a poorly healed psychological wound. Carl Jung identified this pattern as a clear symptom of disconnection from the self. The repeated attempt to convince others about who you are, what you feel, and why you act reveals a state of self-neglect. The person is often seeking something they never received: permission to exist. This behavior typically arises in environments of emotional invalidation, often in childhood, where a child's subjective experience is systematically disqualified. Messages like, "That's nonsense," or "You're exaggerating," teach the child that their feelings only have value if others understand, approve, or allow them. Over time, this belief becomes an invisible prison. The individual grows dependent on others' understanding to affirm their own internal reality. As adults, they compulsively explain to avoid abandonment, judgment, or rejection, believing that if others understand their reasons, they will not be criticized or rejected. This constant effort comes at a high price: the loss of psychological autonomy. By focusing on external validation, the individual neglects their internal authority. They no longer act from belief, but from a need to justify. They rationalize emotions to avoid negative perceptions, gradually stopping to live for themselves and starting to act for others. Jung saw this as a central obstacle to individuation, the process of truly becoming oneself. As long as there is a constant need to explain, there is no inner freedom. Compulsive explanation is a sophisticated form of submission, as if saying with each justification, "I can only exist if you allow it." At its root, this compulsion is a form of self-abandonment. It is the act of betraying one's own truth to make it palatable to others. This pattern is often unconscious. Individuals may not realize they are constantly trying to convince others that their emotions are reasonable or their decisions logical. Healing begins with recognizing that you no longer need to ask for permission to exist. Your emotions, no matter how intense or contradictory, do not need justification to deserve space. This awakening, however, does not happen without pain. The journey toward wholeness requires reclaiming internal authority. This means developing the capacity to uphold your truth, even when it is not understood, causes discomfort, or challenges expectations. It is the beginning of true individuation, even if it means disappointing others. Internal authority is the ability to validate your own subjective experience without relying on others' approval. It is the shift from asking, "Will they understand what I feel?" to asserting, "It doesn't matter if they understand. This is true for me." This is an existential change, moving the psyche's center of gravity from external approval back to the self. In practice, internal authority manifests in small daily gestures, in silence in the face of provocation, in saying no without guilt, or in ending a conversation without explanation. It is the refusal to participate in emotional games where you must constantly justify your position. This new stance is often unsettling to others. People who benefited from your insecurity may feel threatened. Relationships based on power dynamics begin to crumble. This distancing is not a sign of error, but of liberation and realignment. Silence, when it arises from integrity, is a transformative force. It is not an absence of response, but a presence of authority. It deactivates systems of psychological control that feed on insecurity. This silence is an implicit declaration. I owe no explanations to be who I am. When you stop justifying yourself, you begin to listen to yourself. External silence opens space for internal listening, leading to integration. You start to feel emotions fully, rather than rationalizing them. This is where true transformation begins. A person with psychological integrity, who no longer negotiates their essence to fit external expectations, emits a magnetic presence. They do not beg to be understood, they communicate. Their words come from a solid center, not a hidden lack. This integrity commands respect without demanding it. Ultimately, when you stop explaining yourself, everything changes. You emit a new frequency of self-ownership. Relationships shift, anxiety decreases, and you begin to occupy space with certainty. The world responds to this wholeness, treating you with a respect that once seemed unattainable. The journey requires courage, but each time you withhold an unnecessary explanation, you reaffirm your right to exist on your own terms.